Is this all new seating?
Yeah,
I don't want to sit here, so we're gonna have to switch this.
sure. Good evening, everyone. Can I please have a motion and a second to reconvene the public meeting?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence to honor our servicemen and women?
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Torregrossa, Ms. Torregrossa.
Present.
Mrs. DiLorenzo.
Present.
Mrs. Napolitano-Ferno. Mrs. Mallon.
Present.
Dr. Senamore.
Present.
Mrs. Iannatelli.
Present.
Mr. Kohifar.
Here.
Mrs. Poppy.
Present.
And Mr. Hauser.
Present.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion and a second to suspend the business meeting and convene the audit committee meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Sanders?
Thank you to the Board of Education for inviting me this evening. My role this evening is to present the audit plan to you. And as you're aware, I will be back with the draft of the financial statement sometime in October. So the presentation materials that you have in front of you are a summary of what the audit approach is. But I wanted to start, if I could, on page 1 with what our primary purpose is. Our primary purpose is to give an opinion on the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States of America. So we give an opinion on the various funds and then the overall financial activity. Also, because the district expends federal funding, we also give a report on the internal controls over the financial reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. It's known as the Yellow Book report. And then because the State Education Department wants your extra classroom activity funds, even though they're included in your basic financial statements, audited separately on the cash basis of accounting, we also give you a separate report and an opinion on the cash activities of the various clubs and activities at the 3 locations. The school district is fairly aggressive in getting whatever federal funding they can. You might remember, because the single audit report was released within the last, I would say, about 4 months. There was almost $7 million worth of federal funding that the school district received. A lot of it was education stabilization funding under the CARES Act. So as we know, that's not necessarily repetitive from here on out. But because of being over a threshold of $750,000 of federal funding, there's a higher level of audit that the school district is required to undergo. It's the single audit. And so this is also compliance with laws and regulations, but it also looks at major programs. During the previous year, we looked at Title I and the Education Stabilization Funds. And these grants are rotated every 3 years so that you have coverage by your auditor to at least say to the federal government that everything's in order. On the next page, the audit engagement. So as the Board of Education and the community is aware, we are one of 3 sets of auditors that you have. So our role is to express an opinion on the financial statement. You have an internal claims auditor who looks at every claim that gives rise to a disbursement. And then you have your internal auditors who risk assess the whole internal control structure and then determine with the Board of Education whatever areas should be audited. So my role is primarily to give an opinion on the financial statements. We do access information from your claims auditor. We do interview your claims auditor, and the same thing with your internal auditor. We do look at the risk assessment report. We'll look at the payroll report that had been rendered to the Board of Education and some suggestions as to maybe how to change procedures up a little bit. But I can't rely on those reports. They just tell me whether or not I need to do something different as far as an audit approach is concerned. We look at materiality. We don't examine every transaction, and the materiality levels are prescribed by the professional standards. Okay, so then back on page 3, I just wanted to talk about the 3 standards that we're following. Those haven't changed from the years past. So the Board of Education is aware of these. So it's generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and the Single Audit Act and OMB uniform guidance. So I work for the Board of Education. I work with the assistance of the business office and management. And so my role is to have communication with the Board of Education. And I say that because if during the course of the audit something does come up that requires communication to the Board of Education, my responsibility is to reach out to the president of the Board of Education. I have not had to do that in the past, but that is the protocol that I typically do follow. And maintaining independence and exercising due professional care, that comes from evaluating the internal control structure each year and assigning different staff from time to time so that we can have a fresh approach with respect to whatever we are auditing. Management has quite a bit of responsibilities on page 4, and I'm not going to read them all, but basically, if you recall, the financial statement document is very, very thick. We go ahead and prepare that document, but all of the information that goes into that comes from the administration of the school district, predominantly Mr. Hauser's office. And his office and his staff are very cooperative and forthcoming with whatever information we ask on a timely basis. And with that comes making a determination as to what accounting policies need to be applied. That's really the responsibility of the district, and they've done this before. Preparing the financial statements, even though we do that, someone needs to accept responsibility for oversight because it's other than an audit service. Mr. Hauser does this. Same thing with the schedule of expenditures of federal awards contained in the federal single audit and the data collection form that filed that federal single audit with the government. The responsibility is accepted by the business office. So those are down here because they're known on the second bullet of page 4 as non-audit services. And I'm required to tell you, okay, because an audit is an attest service, when your auditor prepares something, that your staff have the acumen to be able to accept responsibility for whatever that product is that we're preparing. All financial records, as I mentioned before, are made available to us. Any kind of new federal awards, it's the district's responsibility to determine those, and they do a good job of that. We ask for unrestricted access to the personnel who are responsible for the various financial cycles. We need to interview them to understand what they're doing, see how that fits into the overall internal control structure, and determine whether or not there is segregation of duties and mitigating controls. So these are the areas of the financial part of the school district that you want to make sure that someone's actually checking someone else's work, if there's a mitigating control in place, or that there's actually a separation of duties so that one person is not involved in actually executing a transaction and recording a transaction. So the district has a good internal control structure in place. We've determined that already from the narratives that we've gained, and we were here in the district doing some work during the early part of the spring, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Any misstatements, and misstatements sound like a bad thing, but misstatements is the terminology by the profession for adjusting journal entries. And the Board of Education might recall that I give you a separate communication at the conclusion of the audit that tells you whether or not we had any difficulties in performing the audit, whether or not there was anything in the financial statements that's contrary to accounting policies that should be followed. And at the tail end of that document are the adjusting journal entries that we propose. So Mr. Hauser and his office are really good. At the conclusion of the audit, he reviews all of the adjusting journal entries, agrees with them, and then they get posted to the district's books and records so that the information that's filed, the ST3 report with New York State, agrees with the audited financial statement. So that's what material misstatements mean. Okay, it sounds like a bad thing. It's really adjusting journal entries. So I wanted to really put that in perspective. And at the conclusion of the audit, we asked for the superintendent and Mr. Hauser to sign a representation letter for us. And the superintendent and Mr. Hauser have been good about that in the previous year. And that's so that we understand that we have all the information we need in order to go ahead and complete the audit process and finalize the draft financial statement. So on page 5, this is kind of the meat of what we do. This talks about the methodology and the approach that we follow. So there's 2 phases of the audit. There's what's known as the planning phase and developing the audit approach. And then there's a phase that's known as the substantive phase, which is on the following page. Those are the 2 major phases that we work through. And as I mentioned before, we were at the district earlier. We were here during the week of May 6th. And during the week of May 6th, those two blue boxes that you see on page 5, that's the time to do that type of work. So what we really do is we're going to assess the risk. So this is the risk over the financial control cycles. And we do this to see whether or not we can rely on the internal control structure with respect to the audit of the financial statements. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see the first bullet is document an understanding of what those internal controls are and how they work, and what are the accounting procedures to support those internal controls. Interview the district personnel. This is always private. It's between one of my staff members or myself and the person, God bless you, who is involved in actually processing those particular transactions. And this is to determine what the segregation of duties are and the mitigating controls to make sure that you're reducing, as you can, to a low level of risk, misstatements within the accounting records. I mentioned about the internal auditors reports and the internal claims auditors reports and the interview process, and we'll also look at any information that came in from the State Education Department or the Office of the State Controller. We did some preliminary analytical review of account balances and transactions, and this is where we identify significant risks of material misstatement. So if you look off to the right, these are the key areas. These are the significant audit areas that we've identified. Payroll and related benefits, obviously, that's the majority of the school district's budget. Purchasing and cash disbursements, cash receipts and collections, the extra classroom activity funds, including fundraising and how does the receipt and disbursement process work. The information technology controls over the financial accounting software. So the school district uses Envision, and there's certain protocols over making sure that there's security attached to that. And there's also permissions that are granted to individuals for using certain parts of the software. And so we'll look at that also. Bank reconciliations. And this is looking at a bank reconciliation from a testing standpoint all the way up through the treasurer's report. And so we did do this. We looked at already 2 full months worth of bank reconciliations. And obviously we'll look at June when we come back to complete the audit. And we look at journal entries and budget transfers to make sure that the journal entries are authorized and they have good supporting documentation, and that the budget transfers comply with the Board of Education's protocol with respect what needs to be communicated to the board, and then what needs to be approved by the board before a budget transfer can take place. And so we've looked at many of these different areas. I've also read through the board minutes, so I see that there were a number of memorandum of agreements that have been executed for a number of different bargaining units. I'll look at those in depth to see how they impact the financial statements. There was a discussion about a bid rejection and then a reaward of a bid. Okay, so there are things within the minutes that I've analyzed, and I want to dig a little bit deeper during the audit. And so that's part of also the audit planning and the audit approach. Going to the next page, then 6. Once we've gone ahead and completed that first phase of the audit, then I could determine how we're going to design the audit program and really drill down on the account balances, the transactions, and what the disclosures look like related to all of these items off to the left under the substantive testing section. And so again, payroll and related liabilities, we're going to be reconciling information back to the 941 reporting. We're going to be looking at analyzing by codes, how salaries are charged, how does that look versus the budget, and how does it look versus the prior year. Revenue recognition and receivables, we have access to outside information from the state with respect to components of the aid that's received and the grants. And so we'll look at that, and we'll make sure that if there's any receivables for services that have been provided to students outside the district or groups, that the receivable is recorded and that it's collectible. The Board of Education has a number of reserves. All of them are in accordance with general municipal law, and these are, or education law. Your capital reserve is education law. And these are good reserves to have in place. You've used them to support the spending side of the budget, okay? And so we look at the activity that it's in compliance with the Board of Education's actions. Federal and state grants, expenditures, and revenues. We'll look at the grant awards that came in, and we'll look at the expenditures that have been charged. So that, do they make sense based upon what the grant is set up for? Is there proper cutoff? Just a couple of things that we'll look at. Capital project expenditures. So you have the 2 bond issues, and then you have the capital reserve. Okay, and so we'll look at the actual spending as far as what took place during the year. and make sure that the accounting for that makes sense in the supporting documentation. The district uses a capital asset inventory company, third party, as all school districts do. And so we'll look at the additions to that reporting versus what's been disposed of and deleted from that particular information. There's a number of long-term liabilities for the entity-wide financial statement. And so one of them has the post-employment benefit liability. So this is health insurance for retirees. And the district has an actuary that they engage in order to prepare this calculation. So we'll audit that information from the actuary. There's some debt, as we know, and there's also leases because the district did adopt GASB 87 2 years back. And so we'll look at that information and see if there's any new leases that need to be captured for reporting purposes. We know that the two pension systems have actuarial valuations, so we'll analyze that information to see that it's incorporated correctly into the financial statement. And I did note in the minutes that the district, the Board of Education authorized a workers' comp actuarial study. And so that's one of the things that from a number of years ago we had suggested be done. And so we'll look at that first report from Sound, okay, which is, I think, the actuarial consulting firm that you're using. And we'll look at the assumptions and we'll tie that information in to the financial statement. So after all of that is done, then we start to draft the financial statements, and then off to the right on page 6, I'll come back to you again with the same documents as the previous year in draft. We'll review the audit report, the communication to those charged with governance, which is the document that has journal entries attached to it. Management letter, the district had one management letter comment last year, and I know they worked to clean this up as quickly as they could. And it had to do with the scholarship area. It had to do with some information from prior years. And if there were significant deficiencies, which there haven't been any, there would be a separate communication under AUC 265, okay? And then once we meet again, the process is still the same. If you agree that the financial statement represents what you need it to represent and you feel that it's fair, then I go ahead and file it with the Office of the State Controller. The school district files it with the State Education Department. And then during either the last quarter of 2024 or the first quarter of 2025, because the federal single audit is a compliance audit, which has a different timetable, we will go ahead and perform the federal single audit. We'll identify the major programs, and then we'll go ahead and do the compliance testing with respect to those. So that's pretty much the process. And then on page 7 is the timetable. As I mentioned, we were here May 6th, and we did quite a bit of work already. And then we'll return on September 2nd. At that point, then the books and records will be closed. So we'll start to do the audit. And then I'll come with the draft of the audit report in October, and the draft of the federal single audit will be ready by the filing deadline with the for the single audit by March 2025. Were there any questions?
Anybody have questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I please have a motion and a second to adjourn the audit committee meeting and reconvene the public business meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Can I please have a motion to accept the minutes of the June 20th, 2024 meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Can I please have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the July 2nd, 2024 meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of policy 0100, equal opportunity and non-discrimination?
Motion.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes,
Well-
yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I still feel that the wording, and I know that, we don't have legal here, but the wording is not inclusive of every single student in our school. It kind of just focuses on one group, while every single child is important and every single child needs the same protections and to feel safe in their environment. So I would really, really like to see that looked at again and to make sure that we are including every single student, regardless of anything. All of them have to be included in that. So I want to see that looked at again. I don't know, we haven't had a policy committee meeting. I'm on the policy committee. We haven't had a meeting yet this year. So I kind of would like to have an opportunity as the board member sitting, one of the board members, I don't know who else is on it with me, but to view this myself in the committee. I would like an opportunity to do that.
I don't like that we just are bringing it up without it have gone past the policy committee.
I
Well, it went
think
to
it
the
was,
policy committee, you were on it, you wanted it to go to legal, legal came back and gave us the sentence of making sure
No,
that.
she's speaking to me.
Yeah,
And I told you in that committee, I was against the verbiage. Do you remember that?
yeah, but the lawyers came back and reworded it for you. This is the new sentence.
It's not much different, and without legal here to ask questions, which is convenient, since I said this in executive, you guys are doing a lot of legal things tonight without legal here. And that's an issue, because none of you are lawyers.
Didn't Doug give us paperwork with this also?
Dr.
it
Summer,
attached?
did you
Like,
speak
besides this,
to
didn't he
Mr.
give the-
Spencer?
Other, I know, but I thought Jesse had other paperwork.
There was, did you provide that? I believe Dr. Centimore provided
Yes,
that to the
and
board.
so Doug Spencer, one of the attorneys from Gersier and Gersier, who often, once a month will join us at the table. He's been looking at the policy upon the board's request. He was also able to provide for the board that I forwarded last week, a breakdown between what the state is recommending and what the state is requiring, and sometimes that gets lost in terms of guidance. So he was able to break it down for us. He felt that the charge was to make sure that the particular verbiage spoke to adherence to laws and regulations as opposed to recommendations. And that's why Mr. Spencer in the orange, came up with that verbiage. So in terms of looking at those couple or that one particular sentence in the orange, he was not charged with looking to add additional verbiage, to your point, Ms. DiLorenzo, about, also referencing all students. He was more focused on differentiating between guidance, which can include recommendations, as opposed to adherence to laws and regulations, which districts are required to do. We could certainly, when we don't agree with a position in terms of a law or a regulation, we could certainly advocate, but laws and regulations, they require compliance and adherence. So the orange speaks to compliance and adherence. We would have to go back to them if we wanted some additional verbiage that also referenced all students.
Yeah, and that's actually what I brought up in that meeting. I said, not only was it, that I the guidance which is just guidance from New York State that seemed to leave out parents, but I also did mention that meeting that I had an issue with, again, the same thing. It seems to just only focus on one group rather than actually protecting all students. That was my other issue with it. So I definitely would like to have that looked at again, or at the very least, roll call vote on this particular item.
I would like legal to be here to answer our questions. It's easier for us to ask the lawyer exactly what our questions are in public to give transparency to the community. Too much is done behind emails and closed doors. Can't continue. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be done out in the open with a lawyer.
Is there any specific time, like, does this have to be in by a certain timeline, or do we have the time to wait until we have a lawyer present? Or are we facing a problem if we don't have this policy adjusted in a certain way?
This is a first reading.
Yes, so this is a first reading. And actually most districts don't actually approve first readings, but we have a policy that states that any policy to be adopted must be approved at 2 board meetings. So that's why this board approves a first reading. And as far as a timeline, I don't believe off the top of my head that this has to be implemented by September 1 or something like that. These are updates the board does have to, there are considerations the board has to look at, but as far as I know, there's not a deadline for that. Again, off the top of my head, I could confirm that real quick, during the meeting, but. I would be okay with a roll call vote on this, and then at the second reading, definitely have legal present.
I would prefer to table
Agreed.
it.
I'm okay with the roll call.
Ms. Terragrosa?
I'm okay with the roll call as long as we have legal at the second reading.
Okay, starting with you.
You have to.
Well, you want me to? We do have a motion.
I have a motion and a second to
Floor.
approve it. Yeah,
Okay. Do you want me to do the call?
if you want to.
Okay. Mrs. Iannatelli?
I'm a yes to the verbiage in here.
Mrs. Mallon?
I'm a yes.
Mrs. Napolitano?
No, I want legal guidance.
No.
In public.
Yeah, I'm a no as well. I would rather have legal guidance with this.
And Mrs. Rosa?
Yes.
Okay. So we do have a lengthy board discussion items. I was wondering how the board feels about moving personnel to
No,
right
I won't.
before it.
I want to do this.
Okay. So,
I'm okay with personnel just because there's people might be
Right.
waiting.
anybody else?
Can we do
I
at
wanted
least
to move
one?
personnel to.
Why are we switching an agenda once we're
I was
already
just
here?
asking if the board would be okay with it, because we do
Respectfully.
have someone in the audience waiting.
I'm fine.
So I would need a motion and a second to move personnel to before discussion items.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
No,
Okay. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve?
it has to be separate votes.
Yes. I always forget which one has, the instructional. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve the instructional personnel schedule?
Motion.
Second.
Does anybody, number 25 wants to be pulled for a roll call vote? Okay. So
We told you
can,
this in executive.
no, I understand.
So I have normally we approve the,
very
all the
unorganized.
schedules at once. So we're pulling that one item for a separate vote. So the motion is to approve the instructional schedule, items 1 through 24, and then the non-instructional schedule and the CPI training schedule? Or are you doing them all individually?
No, I could do them together and then number 25
And then number
separate.
25 separately? Okay.
Seems very unorganized tonight. Can we just get to the, so we know we were only pulling one thing for a separate vote?
Yes, and I'm just trying to get the verbiage correct.
Okay,
So-
and if you're having an issue, it seems.
No, I'm fine. I'm just trying to make sure
We
I
already
say
went
it
over this
right.
3 times.
She was getting guidance.
Well, we already went over this 3 times.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve the instructional and non-instructional personnel items?
Motion.
Second.
And we are roll calling vote number 25 on the instructional personnel. So a vote on the non-instructional as presented and the instructional as amended.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Just with the non-instructional
This is the most unorganized voting I've seen for
Okay.
personnel in the longest time.
So we are going 1 through 24 right now,
Yes,
and then we're going to do 25
That is
separate. So
correct.
I'm good with 1 through 24,
This is
yes.
very
Yes,
odd
and the
what's going on
non-instructional.
right now.
We're voting on the instructional and non-instructional minus number 25 from the instructional.
All of us voted but Jack.
Right.
This is because they're doing things that without an attorney. I'm gonna abstain because without an attorney here, there's too many things being done behind closed doors.
Jackie, all I'm doing is asking for a vote on the personnel items.
Marisol, all you're doing is hiding things again behind closed doors.
Okay.
Oh, trust me, we'll go over it.
So
very soon.
you're abstaining?
I'm abstaining as well because I'm gonna have to go back and watch this because I have no idea what just
But
happened.
they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know
No,
what
we're
they're doing.
approving personnel items, Jackie. You're
And you're
either,
not doing it correctly. You had to ask 3 times, Marisol. Get it
Jesse,
together.
It's
Is that
okay.
not-
It's okay.
No, I mean, I'm understand that was just for the, all the schedules minus the one that was pulled for the
Correct.
separate vote.
It only took 3 times to get it right. Now, let's go. Next.
so you have 3 votes and 2 abstentions. Okay, so for number 25 on the instructional personnel schedule, can I get a motion and a second to approve?
Motion.
Second.
And I will roll call vote. Ms. Terragrosa?
Yes.
Ms. DiLorenzo?
I'm abstaining.
Ms. Napolitano-Ferno?
I'm a no.
I'm a yes. Ms. Iannatelli?
I'm a yes.
Dr. Centimore?
So thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to introduce, she's with us tonight, the new principal for Sycamore Elementary School, Ms. Erin Papadopoulos. Welcome to Connecticut. Welcome to the T-Bird family. Looking forward to working with you.
Congratulations. Can I get a superintendent update, Dr. Sanmore?
Thank you very much. So it's been a very busy summer. It's been an excellent summer here in Connecticut. As you might know, we have several summer programs happening throughout the district in numerous buildings. I was just recently over at Idle Hour. I was able to attend a talent show. It was wonderful. Students actively engaged, having a good time as part of their enrichment services. We have programs going on at Basti and the high school, both extended year and E&L. Over at Basti in a couple of weeks, I was just recently invited to, they're having a little program called Tour of the Ocean. I'm looking forward to going to it. I haven't been able to get to the ocean too much myself this summer, so I'm looking forward to that experience. I want to thank all of our teachers and support staff, and of course our kids for the excellent job that they're doing in all of these summer programs. Very excited later this week. Not that I'm trying to wish the month of July away, but Friday, August 2nd, our summer band camp is going to be doing a showcase for our parents Friday evening. And of course, as you know, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but we do have one of the premier music and arts programs on planet Earth, and certainly a very talented marching band program. Looking forward to seeing that parent showcase. And thank you to all the music and arts boosters for their involvement in that as well. Now that we're getting very close to August, the high school athletics is just around the corner. Football will begin the week of August 19th. The following week, all of our other high school sports will be coming in. Information regarding sports physicals have gone out for those families wishing to utilize the school physician. If you have any questions with that, please feel free to reach out to Student Services or the athletic department. I know people are also going to start wondering about when those elementary teacher assignments and those secondary student schedules will be going out. We're looking at near the end of that week of August 19th to August 23rd, eyeing the 23rd for the elementary teacher assignments and maybe even the 22nd or so for the secondary schedule assignments. We are also currently rolling out a new parental communication platform called Parent Square. So we're encouraging our families to please sign up. I've used it a few times already, and it's very user-friendly. So any questions about Parent Square, please reach out to our technology department or curriculum office, and we appreciate everybody's cooperation with that as we roll that out. Tomorrow at Farmingdale Middle School at 2 o'clock, there's a very important public hearing on foundation aid. If you were part of our conversations during the budget development process, foundation aid is one of the largest components of school aid that school districts get. Certainly, it has a major impact on Long Island school districts, especially here in Connecticut. And the governor wants to take a close look at this formula and to look at revisions to the formula. And so, our participation at hearings such as this, our advocacy as a school district is very important. Again, I said this numerous times during the budget development process. Our district, we're just looking for our fair share of state aid and state aid annual increases. An annual increase is important because all costs, do increase. And so any changes they make to the formula, we want to make sure they're conducive changes. We understand it's a formula that needs to be fair and equitable across New York State. But certainly we will do our local advocacy. I know our elected officials are well on top of this. New York State School Boards is as well. I was able to forward a position statement to the board last week that Mr. Vecchio from New York State School Boards was able to share with me. And with the blessing of the school board, I would like for us to draft our own position that I'd like to get to you over the next month certainly for your approval by the late August 27th meeting, as the state is looking for feedback by September 6th. It's a very quick turnaround. They're being very ambitious in trying to get this feedback as they look to make some changes. Our business official, Mr. Hauser, will be joining me tomorrow. And one of the things that I think is important, I said this to Mr. Vecchio with New York State School Boards, is, it's important for the state not to just look at the foundation aid formula. There are so many things that drive finances in schools. We know that the pension system, both the employee retirement system, the teacher retirement system, the two pension systems, they need to be closely looked at. We know about mandates, whether they're unfunded or poorly funded. The electric bus mandate is a perfect example for a district like ours. I've said this many times, with 120 to 130 buses, and the major implication on fiscal sustainability. So it's important not to look at this in isolation, but certainly we'll be paying very close attention at this hearing. And with your blessing, I'll work on a draft, and we'll look to get that to the board in the coming weeks. There's a tremendous amount of facilities work going on around the district. You have your routine maintenance and summer work and preparation for the opening of school, which is that object in the rearview mirror. And you also have capital projects such as roof work and gym floor work and cafeteria floor work. I want to thank our facilities department, Mr. Allen, Mr. Weisberg, all of our custodians, maintenance and grounds. This is their crunch time. They're one of the busiest times of the year. They're all working very, very hard. We look forward to the end of August, setting up some time to invite board members to walk through. Well, as Mr. Allen, bless you, perhaps the end of August, he could, give us a nice update for the board and the community on the great work that's being done around the district. So we appreciate it. When we open the doors, you can look at your image, your reflection off the floor. You could see the walls sparkle and shine. And, it's not the Keebler elves that came in overnight and did the magic. It's our people. We do have, some contractors as well. And it's important we recognize the importance of that work, because, this adds to the culture, to the environment, to make it a conducive learning environment for our students and a safe and comfortable place as well for all of our staff. There's also a lot going on in terms of instructional planning, teaching and instruction, the bread and butter of a school district. A lot going on this summer in preparation for the school year. And so I'm going to take that baton and hand it to my distinguished colleague on the cabinet, Ms. Poppy, to give us a nice, robust update on instructional happenings.
I sure will. So before I get into the curricular pieces, this is a follow-up to your mentioning about some of the summer programming that's taking place
Please.
currently. So
Please.
with a little more specificity, currently we have extended school year for our special education students that's taking place in Connecticut High School and Basti Elementary School. Also at Connecticut High School, we're hosting an E&L summer program currently. Also currently, we have BOCES Summer Enrichment Program taking place at Idlehour Elementary School, which Dr. Senamore was able to visit just this past week. And in a look ahead, during the weeks of August 12th and 19th, we'll host once again the ARP American Rescue Plan funded SCOPE Summer Enrichment Program at Connecticut High School. And that's the one that is free to district residents for students in grades K through 12. On the curricular side of things, we have a number of new initiatives. A request was made for a generalized update. However, I'm going to break that update into an elementary and middle and high school commentary just for the sake of organization. So at the elementary level in 2024 to 2025, we are looking very much forward to be able to extend our FLES program into second grade. So if you recall, if you've been on the dais and if you've been in the public discussion about our FLES program, it started with a 3rd to 5th grade reach. This past school year, we looked at the introduction of a FLEX program to our 6th grade students. That's foreign language exposure. And for 24-25, we're bringing it down to our younger students in grade 2. and that's Spanish instruction for those children.
That's a lunch and learn, correct?
That is taking place in the same format as it has at the elementary level, and that is a lunch and learn format for those children. So it's an option for them. It's not required. We do have a great deal of participation district-wide throughout all 7 of our elementary buildings, a great deal of interest, and we're hoping to see that same level of interest for our second graders this coming school year. We'll see year 3, a continuation of our elementary interventionist program. So we had a lot of discussion about this program last spring. And we know as a district that our funding through those COVID relief funds, those resources, are expiring on September 30th of this year. But luckily, with the board's support and with a great deal of configuration, we were able to maintain 4, and we were able to, once staffing was settled, increase it to 5 elementary interventionists to continue this program into a 3rd year. And this 3rd year will be marked by our interventionists doing work in all 7 elementary schools, along with our 2 literacy consultants. They will play a role in this work as well, to focus on the application of Tier 1 intervention strategies directly to students, and developing this firm handoff that I spoke about last spring of strategy to our classroom teachers. And so we're very happy to report that we're able to work with 5 dedicated interventionists, and along with the support of our 2 literacy consultants within the district, a complement of 7 individuals' influence into this program. And I'm sure that the results and the magic that we witnessed, the skills effort that our students participated in last year and the year prior, will continue into year 3. Our Sequest enrichment program will continue to take place again within our 7 elementary schools across the district. We have exciting and challenging programming coming up. It's being developed this summer. A little change in Sequest. We are having a single facilitator for this program in 24-25. We're excited to see the different changes to the program curricular-wise. We're always looking at new projects. We're always looking at new opportunities to challenge students. And so we're continuing on that trajectory of offering a unique experience for our 4th and 5th grade students in the Sequest program next year. The district's RTI plan will undergo an annual review, as we do yearly, and we'll go ahead and pay some special attention to focus in on the location and method of our Tier 2 interventions. So we're looking at transitioning some of our pull-out programs into push-in programs in our classrooms, in our elementary schools. We're trying it on this year in a number of elementary buildings to measure the success, to measure the ability of our students to remain inside of their classrooms, receive their interventions, and be able to continue seamlessly in classroom instruction upon the delivery of that intervention. And we'll be reporting back and kind of measuring the progress of that effort throughout the fall and spring semesters this school year. We'll see year 2 of the elementary mathematics program with Envision Mathematics, including our ARC-funded professional development that's supplied by our developer with the Sabas company. We're going to be continuing a relationship with the developer who we onboarded last year. We saw great success with her implementation in our 7 elementary schools of the professional development, being responsive to the faculty's need and pushing into our classrooms to offer support. Earlier this month, we had some teacher-led assessment development through summer curriculum writing, and it will be shared amongst all faculty members on Superintendent's Conference Day. So we're looking forward to kind of working with the program within Connectquot's needs base and being responsive to the needs that students and our faculty have brought forward through that summer curriculum writing project. Revamped elementary report cards are in the prototype production phase. The former standards-based report card was revised on committee this past spring to reflect New York State learning standards at every grade level. Our goal is to begin the use of these more accurately academically reflective documents in the 24-25 school year. And we've had quite a deal of input into this process. So that prototype document will be brought before the curriculum committee this fall. And we are moving forward into that full implementation for the end of the first trimester for all of our elementary schools. We're also looking at a transition to computer-based state assessment testing in, computer-based state assessment testing in 24-25. That was a mouthful. This year, Connecticut's 5th and 8th graders took computer-based state assessments. And in the spring of 2025, we're looking for all students in grades 3 through 8 to shift to computer-based testing. This state is slowly requiring certain grade levels to onboard computer-based testing. What we found with our first foray into this particular model or this particular process of assessment taking is that it was much more streamlined for students, certainly at the building level. And we're looking forward to continuing that kind of pathway for all of our students. So we're all testing in a similar format next spring. We're looking to incorporate the TEACH program that I spoke about very briefly during the last board meeting in the district's 5, 8, 1, 3 classes at Basti Elementary School. A little bit about this program. It's an approach that involves a structural organization of the classroom to result in effective learning situations for students with autism. The structural components of the classroom that are treated in the approach include physical organization of the room, scheduling within the classroom, and teaching methods within the classroom. So we're going to have our initial foray into this particular approach in those 5 classrooms in 24-25. Along with the professional development that will be provided by a particular company that works within this model, of course.
Is this something that, I thought that TEACH was already being used in our schools last year. I knew it was one of those curriculums that was based out of North Carolina. It was, yes. But I thought that this was something that we already had.
So we are, if it was implemented on a smaller scale basis. This would be all of those 8, 1, 3 classrooms at Basti. We did a bit of research over the spring semester. We visited a local district that uses this approach, saw it in action in the classroom, talked with the training company to see what types of options for professional development would be available to teachers. Just to see what their models look like. And so we'll be moving forward with it in that particular school for those particular classrooms wholly in 24-25. Okay. Also in special education, we'll be focusing in on our ICT model, our integrated co-teaching model. And we'll be providing professional development opportunities to paired co-teachers so that they're able to hone their delivery method with one another, right? This is something that the district has engaged in periodically over the years. We believe that it's time for kind of a refresher of this type of development and this type of support for our ICT pairs. We had administrators participate in a training early in June to kind of mirror some of the strategies that will be expressed to ICT pairs next year. And we're looking forward to the opportunity within all of our ICT paired special education classrooms for next year at the elementary level. As far as our middle schools, we're looking at year 2 of the 6th grade Wheel of Experiences in Flex, which, as I mentioned before, is an exposure to a world language. In our case, it's either Italian or French. Digital literacy, and the other spokes of that wheel were pre-existing courses in facts, family and consumer science, and art. Feedback regarding these new courses has been very positive, And we're going to continue to focus our attention on developing these different curricula. Recognizing that, one effort at curriculum writing and 1 year of implementation is not said and done when it comes to teaching and learning, right? So we've taken some effort to gather feedback. Overwhelmingly, it's been very positive. We'll make some adjustments next year to make it even better in our middle school buildings, and so on and so forth. Our 6th grade English instruction, in order to make room for these 2 new courses, that's the Flex experience and the digital literacy experience, our 6th grade English instruction was adjusted to a period and a half, which was a departure from the typical double period that we experienced. We're going to continue to focus our attention on supporting our 6th grade ELA teachers as they navigate the change in their classroom. Some of them have been teaching at this level for quite some time, so it certainly was an adjustment. And it's, again, never kind of 1 year said and done. This is the way that it's going to be or should be. We'll continue to support those teachers in the adjustments that they need to make. We're also going to see the continuation of grades 7 and 8 push in computer science curriculum in both middle schools with an eye toward creating a dedicated scheduling to accommodate a computer science course and some additional health instruction in grade 7. These were projects that we had lined up, but for several reasons, we kind of took a pause here. We're going to kind of revisit these ideas next year, but computer science instruction will occur through our regularly scheduled math classes as it has been for the last few years in grades 7 and 8. Those are push-in experiences using our Kadoyo coding platform. And for the high school, I'm rounding the corner, Dr. C. Our June Regents results were very impressive. We boasted impressive passing and mastery rates for all exams, including a newly revised Algebra 1 exam. So I'm happy to have been able to share the results with the Board of Education. I anticipate that you'll have additional questions about those particular results. Do you have one now? Go ahead.
Those were the ones that I put on as a board discussion.
Okay.
The Regents and the AP. I had heard that there was curves, big curves, that were given because of how hard some of these exams ended up being across Long Island. Now, we keep saying we did so great on them, but if there's a 20-point and a 24-point curve, how did we really do on them? That's my question, because I'm hearing, and excuse me, I'm sorry, my asthma is terrible right now. I'm hearing that it's our numbers are a little bit jaded. And that's why I had questions during board discussions, what is the Regents AP scores? Because again, we have plenty of students who get 90s and 100s in classes and then take a Regents or an AP exam and they don't reflect their grades on those tests and they don't do well on them. So somewhere there's a disconnect. And then I heard that there was kids that failed, kids that got 24 points, 20-point curves. So my question is, what was really the situation with some of these tests? Because some of them, and I don't know if it was, I think I heard it was chemistry was one of them. One of them was a science, and I apologize, I don't know the exact one at the moment. But I know that there was issues with math, there was issues with science, and some of them, they said, the numbers are so extremely risen from these curves. Are there curves being given on these tests? 20 points and 24 points?
So I'll explain this kind of in my mind, just based upon my experience, what we see. Every student will earn sort of a raw score on an exam based upon the number of questions that the exam asks and the number of points that are available for each of those question types. And then the state issues for Regents exams a conversion chart. And what that conversion chart does is it essentially plots the number of questions that the student answered correctly with a point value, and then you arrive at a score that the state kind of plots out in that chart. Essentially a curve. The conversion chart historically changes from year to year, depending upon the exam, depending upon the exam administration. And it does represent a curve of sorts, but the district doesn't determine the level of curve from that raw score that a student earns. It's the state's determination of that performance level based upon their metrics, based upon the statistical analysis that they do in the state education department. And those conversion charts apply for every district. So when we look at our passing and mastery rates on a Regents exam, we're comparing ourselves not to a raw score per se. We are comparing ourselves to, averages that are statewide. And so we're comparing our students' performance to students' performance in neighboring school districts according to that same conversion chart. So that type of comparison becomes apples to apples. When you're talking about a comparison of a student's score on a Regents exam versus their final course average, well, then that's something that we can look more closely at internally. And we've done that last year, actually. We engaged in a few sessions. And if you'd like to do that, if there's a specific exam that you'd like to look at more closely, we can certainly sit down and look at that data together.
I would love that because I am not as, obviously, I'm for getting rid of the Regents exams, as you already know. I think if you're giving 24 points or 20 points, and again, I'm glad it helps children that are struggling, but what is the purpose of these tests? If we're giving them, we're causing the stress, we're teaching for a test. We're not teaching to learn, and there's so much more that kids could learn in these classes if they didn't have to teach to pass a test. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It's different I understand with AP exams, you have to have the AP exam. But with these Regents, we did years during COVID of not doing them, and we saw a difference when we went back to them. Now we're doing 24-point curves, 20-point curves.
So if I could just ask, with the new
Sure.
Algebra 1 with the computerized testing, it took almost 3 weeks to get the test scores back from BOCES. Is that because they were creating a new curve?
Yes.
But didn't they have a curve,
No.
I guess the computer one was so different than the paper test?
So the Algebra 1 was a traditional testing session. What we ended up doing, the exam was offered in early June. The district collects students' papers and sends up the results to Albany, to the state education department, and then they determine the curve and send back the scaled results to the districts. That is typically the process for any new Regents exam. So next year, we're going to see that process for a new geometry exam and for a new exams in earth and space sciences, as well as life sciences biology. They're transforming the curriculum in these areas and producing new Regents assessments. And so we're going to see that same early testing scenario for those particular subject areas in June of 2025 as well. Our students take the exam, students statewide take the exam. The results are sent to Albany. Albany determines that conversion chart, that scaled score, and then sends the results back to us prior to very close, typically, to the end of the school year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a few questions.
Sure.
I had originally put this on the board discussion, so thank you, Joe, for getting this all together. I just want to go back. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I see we already did so. You had said that for the Envision Math and we were going to have that mentor again.
Yes.
Now, I thought we didn't have funds for her because we only had a grant. How are we paying for that?
She is grant funded. We were able to manage that through our COVID relief grants as well. So she is grant funded this year as well. The company charges us upfront, and the grant period has not expired yet. So we were able to reserve some monies to support her work within the district in 24-25.
Okay. You've answered all my questions except for the one. I just wanted to explain to the public why we're not having the general chemistry.
Sure. Did I mention that? Do you want to go ahead and explain, or would you like me to?
No, you.
Okay.
You're the expert. Yeah, go ahead.
I have just a few more points before I get there, April. Is that okay? All right. So I wanted to highlight this because it's quite impressive. This May, 1,042 AP exams were written by our students at Connecticut High School. That's up from 989 in 2023 and 854 in 2022. As compared to 2023, our exam mean score improved from 3.1 out of a 5-point scale to 3.4 in 2024. And the percentage of students who earned a 3 or better on their AP assessments rose from 74% to 84%. Of the 24 different exam types that students wrote last May, mean score results improved on 18 of them. That's really very impressive. And certainly we're very proud of these numbers. We're proud of students for challenging themselves. It's something that administratively we're always talking about in a unified way. And our students, our children are rising to that challenge. So kudos to them and to their hardworking teachers who have fostered in them the desire to do better and to perform well. And we're seeing these wonderful results as a result of those efforts. Regardless of a student's performance, something that we also talk about frequently is just that idea of challenging yourself, right? To have that exposure and experience with a college level course before graduating from high school. In fact, we have 29 dual enrollment courses that are available to our students in partnerships with 5 local universities and colleges. So if you're a student who's not interested in taking that AP route, the advanced placement route, you have these types of opportunities available to you as well. And we're looking to expand our offerings in different subject areas, not in 24-25, but we look to be to plan that work in 24-25 for the following school year. We have our sights set on some unique opportunities. For the class of 2024, we boasted a 99% graduation rate. 61% of our graduates are attending 4-year colleges and universities. 24% of the graduates are attending 2-year colleges and universities. 39 athletes are competing at Division 1, 2, or 3 colleges and universities. 258 graduates earned the Seal of Civic Readiness. 113 graduates earned the Seal of Biliteracy. So many seals that we had trouble fitting them all on students' transcripts. And 64 students earned a technical endorsement on their diploma. So that's exceptional and outstanding work by the class of 2024. We are so proud of those numbers and proud of every student who participated in these programs and really realized their goals across the school year last year. We also are seeing district-wide, this is more of a secondary conversation, but we are seeing for the 24-25 school year, the transition of a passing score from a 70 to a 65 at the secondary level. I know we've talked about that. This process was vetted through the district's curriculum committee, and we're looking forward to that transition for next school year. Speaking of transitions, we did have a number of adjustments, I would say, to our scheduling in order to accommodate some of the coursework that we have available to students and some of the students' needs that we have internally. There was a question that came about regarding chemistry, and more specifically, a general chemistry elective that was offered at Connecticut High School previously. We won't be running that elective course next year because we have some other needs within the science department that have to be accommodated for graduation requirements. The general chemistry is an elective course, and we do have a number of other elective opportunities available for students. So we're looking forward for any student who selected general chemistry as an elective course as their first selection for their entrance into other science electives. And that process was initiated already by our wonderful counseling staff at the high school, who are on top of the changes as we headed into the summer. If there are additional changes that need to be made, I'm certain that they will be taken care of right at the start of the school year so that students can have the full complement of the coursework needed in order to have a full schedule. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Poppy. That was outstanding. I also want to thank all of our students who have done all these wonderful accomplishments, support from their families, their parents, and our staff, teaching staff, administrators, the support staff, those unsung heroes in and out of our classrooms. It was a great school year. We have our sights set even higher as we keep pushing that bar. For next year, I just want to thank the Board of Education for forwarding these great questions and keeping that instructional focus. Again, the teaching and learning, the bread and butter of a school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Poppy. Thank you, Dr. Centimore. We have Board of Ed topics. We have the NISBA conference.
That's me. I would like to put down, I would like to go in October. Me and Jackie DiLorenzo and Dr. Centimore just went to the law conference. It's an excellent conference where all the board members should go. We learned about strategic school budgeting, recurring questions, emerging issues. You learn about the new laws, you learn about the new court cases. I tried to say to all the board members that everyone should make it their business to go, but I had some tell me that they read books. Well, here's the law book. This law book and this law book, you're going to read. You're not going to learn anything because you're not going to understand it. Because we're not lawyers, April.
Right, no.
So what it does is, can I finish?
I just want to thank Marisol because we actually all have copies.
Oh, really? Well, Marisol threw it in the garbage. She told me that it was in plastic and she threw it in the garbage. I have that. She wrote it to me. I threw mine in the garbage. Don't waste taxpayer money and stakeholders' money to throw them in the garbage. If you want them and you're going to read them and you're going to actually use them, by all means, use them. But if you're not, don't waste taxpayer money, please. 1, 2. This is a conference that you all should have went to because it teaches you about budgeting. And nobody on this board has that kind of experience, okay? The legal responsibility for managing a school district's fiscal affairs lies with the school board. That's who does it, not, well, we just depend on our business official. That's great, we have a wonderful business official, but we're supposed to be responsible, fiscally responsible. It is something that you guys should make it your business next year or whenever the next one is to go. These are meant to help you. Watching a webinar that you can watch on your phone for 20 minutes that's not going to teach you anything is not the way to go. Go to these NISMA ones. They are excellent. Was it not? How much did you learn? The learning, I've been going every year for 6 years. The learning is unbelievable. The amount that you learn from all of the different speakers and the experts that are there is exceptional. Every year I learn more and more, and it's worth it to go. I understand everybody's busy, but everyone makes time when it's our children's stuff at the school. I see everybody there. Everybody wants to go to the stuff when our own children are involved because we're board members and we're allowed to go. But that's not all we should be going to. We should be going to trainings that actually have people speaking in front of us, not just, I'll do a webinar, I'll do this. Go to the in-person trainings. The way that we send teachers, the way that we send professional development, the school board should have professional development and go to these. They are well worth it. I would like to go to the one in October because, again, you never stop learning.
So the board would need to authorize the expenditure for that. So in the past, when board members have gone, they have authorized an up to amount. The event is 3 days. And it is in New York City. And while I know that we have access to public transportation and such, they are early mornings and late nights with some networking opportunities later on. So I need clear direction as to what the board is authorizing an expenditure for. Would it be just for the registration? Would it be for rooming and lodging, and that sort of thing? So,
Well, I want to do whatever people have done in the past. And I believe that's staying there because of the fact is that it's a continual, I heard it's a continual.
It is. It's like
I heard it's
8 a.m.
continual.
to like 10 p.m.
The amount of learning, first of all, I've never gone in 6 years. And because it's always been in like Albany, Georgia, it's always been out of reach.
Well, they're always in New York State.
Well, no,
This one, the New York State School Board Association,
okay, this one
is always in New York State.
I don't think this one they had the year of COVID and
No,
the
I
year
don't think
after.
so.
I think that we
They were like digital.
yeah, I was gonna say, because I remember doing it online. But these in person, like Dr. C, the one we just went to, how good was it? Excellent, the one we just went to. I mean, what you learn, you can't learn reading a book. The books are great as having the books there and watching and listening, reading as they go over it. But the fact that somebody's in front of you, giving you guidance and giving you what you need to do. I mean, if we were just given these books and you read them, you're not going to learn as much as having the people in front of you exactly give you different, they just fine tune it. It was amazing. And every board member should go.
I'm not saying that these in-person aren't good, but everybody learns differently. So I'm not going to put down someone who reads a book or watches a webinar, does it. Everybody learns differently. So you can't just say that you only learn seeing. I understand the benefit of being in person, but everybody does learn differently.
April, what you wrote in an email, what you wrote in the email was extremely rude.
Let me finish.
And
Let me
said,
finish.
I just
said that
read the book.
read books.
I read books. I don't
read
need,
books. I go
I
to
don't need you
training.
telling me how to learn. That's what you wrote.
That's
But
right, I
that's because
don't.
you don't want to
That
learn.
is correct. I
You
don't
think
need
that
to.
you know
Everybody learns
everything, and you're only on the
differently.
board
I
1
recognize
year.
that. We
You're
have
on the board
students in
1
our
year. Learn.
district who learn differently, and we as a board have to recognize that there's visual, there's reading, there's so many ways of learning, and there's auditory, everybody's different. I am only approving the expenditure for the registration fee. That's for me. Like if we're going to take a vote, the registration fee. If we're close enough, take the train home, go back. So I'm not approving funds being used for sleepovers.
Okay, I do have to check because it is, can I borrow the school law book that you have?
I don't think
I
that
have one in my office.
you know what?
No.
Why don't we table it till August and look into it, because legal.
I don't know that we can, because I think you would have to register.
I don't think legally the board can, because we had this issue
I
years
think
ago.
when it comes down to
that she
you
doesn't
can't
get to make
require
that
a board
decision.
member to pay out of pocket for things. So that's why if you guys just give me a little bit of time, I can do that official research. And while there is time to register for the event, the room blocks that NISBA blocks off in order to, like in the hotels, that they do block off rooms, sort of like what you would do for any sort of convention or like a wedding or something like that. Those rooms go extremely quickly, and they actually do go up tomorrow. So they often sell out within a day or two.
Right. Just so you know, my opinion on that was based on last meeting. We had community members get up and explain that they didn't want us to have to waste money on room and board. And we agreed as a board last meeting that we would just take the train in or
No,
drive
April,
or whatever.
we didn't agree on that,
So
April.
since community
We didn't agree on
members
that.
mentioned this,
And since I, for
I
6 years, have paid
listened.
my own way for everything,
and that's- I
it's
don't
not
want you to
about that.
pay. I
It's
don't want you to
about
pay.
learning. I understand that you don't take the time to go to these things. Why don't you take the train and we'll go together? We'll go together. We can go on the train, you and I, and we'll see if you take the time. Because you take the time for pep rally and for all these other events because you want to be at the high school with your own child. But you won't take the time to learn, and you've been on the board only 1 year. You do not know enough to not go to these things and learn.
I believe every day everybody educates themselves. I agree. Learning is a
You educate
lifelong
yourself every day.
journey. It is a lifelong journey. And I do agree, but you can't take away the fact that I do read and that I do take the classes and I do other things.
April,
Please don't
we've had a
minimize
budget
what
for the
other people
board
do.
to go to trainings. That's what it's for. The budget's not meant for us to have dinner downstairs. The board, it's for us to learn. And every board member should take the opportunity to try to go and learn.
Can I just ask how many board members want to go and stay over? Just so we have a clear understanding if there's even enough money in the budget.
Right, so I really only, I think based on the board's guidance during budget season, there really is tops two. So of course there is other monies within your budget in which, you know, we can look around, but yeah, a head count would be great. So at least we know where we're starting with from.
So you said you had enough monies for two, you believe, under the budget that we
that's what
agreed
we
upon
roughly-
as the board?
That's what we roughly kept in the budget. There was room for more, but we did, based on the guidance, I did cut it down to two. And again, if we could just hold off on the motion to actually approve these expenditures while you guys go over the rest of the board topics and do the rest of the agenda, I could actually get confirmation on, you know, if we can actually require board members to, just basically what we're allowed to do, that sort of thing, just so you guys have that.
That's fine, but how many board members would want to go?
I just have to check dates, but I would not want to stay over. I would take the train. So if anything, it would just be conference for me, not lodging.
Well, it's not just conference, because it's also, I'm assuming you would be eating, it would be travel, it would be all of those things.
I'm not a big fan of staying over, but it's just the fact that it starts at 7 and goes.
What's the dates again, please?
October 20th through 22nd.
Thank you. And I originally had said that I could do the Sunday probably, but not the Monday and
Yeah.
You have to
Tuesday.
pay for all of it.
So,
That is correct.
right, and you have to pay for the registration for all three. We're gonna find that out.
No, it
Yes.
is.
No, you actually have to pay for all of it, even if you only go for one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you have to commit. If you're not going to commit to go for the 3 days, then don't waste taxpayer money. That's my whole point.
Because the
If you're gonna-
registration is $540
Yeah,
per
it's-
person.
Like I said, I'd only be able to do one day, so I will not commit because I won't waste the money for the taxpayer. I'll read.
I can't do all 3 days myself.
Yeah, I'm not going either, but if people wanted to go and we needed to move money, I would be okay with, we have to discuss that, but
Sure.
because I would never want to stop anybody from getting that extra education if they want to try to go.
Sure.
So, but I personally cannot go.
All right, so I'm gonna just work on it. You guys continue on. I'll give you what to.
Thank you.
Because I have a few things to add. You're done? Okay. I wanted to add also, and I actually had a few questions because the law conference that we went to, it was fantastic. So I'm very happy that I got to go. A few things that I did learn about that I wanted to ask about, if I could ask you, Bob. One of the things they mentioned was about rollover costs from year to year. So I was just curious to get your professional opinion on that, about doing that and being able to bring money, I'm not the accountant, so what exactly they meant and your opinion on that.
Yeah, so we had the auditor here tonight, and they'll be working on the closing of the books with our business office. It usually happens between, mid-late September and the very start of October. So what happens in school districts is any monies that are left over, they go into the savings account. The two categories of the fund balance, which you're allowed to keep up to 4% of the operating budget, and also the various designated reserve categories, which are outlined by regulation, and the board approves those allocations being made to the reserves. What's being floated out there is the idea of, instead of putting any carryover money into the savings account, is to actually be able to just straight apply it. The concept can work if it's, those one-time expenses. Certainly, it allows a little bit more flexibility as opposed to, tapping into a reserve or applying a fund balance. And it does work hand in hand. You see where the books close, the auditors, they report the closing of the books. You see how much the district in that budget cycle applied out of the savings into the budget. And then the goal is always to try to recuperate as much of it as possible and put it back. And that's one of the things that, in terms of fiscal oversight and fiscal sustainability, is to monitor that trend and see that if, as a school district, you're able to get a majority of that applied fund balance and reserve utilization back and then put it in. So let's say they do approve something like, you're allowed X amount of a dollar threshold or X% of a dollar threshold to just apply without putting it into one of those categories. You still wouldn't make that fiscal decision in isolation of looking at the trend of your reserves and your fund balance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. C. Another question I wanted to ask about, and this is basically because we don't have somebody on here who's a financial person, and this might help. I know for me, these types of organizational things do help. Could we have just a simple breakdown or some sort of a chart, something just comparing the different funds? I heard that a lot about the different funds, the capital reserve, uncollected taxes, repairs, workers, I don't know how many they listed. And that some of them there's different ways to fund them. There's different ways to spend them. Some of them need board approval, some of them don't. Can we just have some sort of a guide on just that part of it, just to help us all along? If anybody else, if you don't want one, you don't have to, but I know for me that would help when I'm looking through this. Is there a way to put something like that together?
Sure. Yep. And,
Okay.
when you mention, I guess, learning a little bit more about these reserves, and we might want to even extend the conversation as Dr. Senamore and I were experiences, which reserves are we allowed to transfer money from and to? We can expand upon it a little bit more if you want. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that you would help us, anything that I forgot, that would actually, I think that would be great. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And my other question too, as I'm learning all this, is they did mention that there were going to be APPR changes and everybody's moving to 3012E plans. Are we doing that? And do we know when we're doing that? How is that all going to play out for us here in Connecticut?
So the state gave all school districts a very long timeline, so there's no immediate action required, but we have had a recent conversation with at least our Teachers Association. Ms. Poppy, if you want to just give a quick update.
So I did reach out to the CTA union president. Ms. Berger is no longer the CPDA president, so I've been reaching out to Ms. Leahy, thank you. And, essentially Mr. Felicio felt that the conversation didn't need to be had right now as the changes weren't immediate. He is aware of it. However, he just feels like he wants to hear a little bit more before any final decisions are made.
Thank you. But that conference was excellent, and thank you for, to the board for approving that we go, because it really was fantastic. Thank you.
All right, we have graduation staff numbers and student ratio.
We just went over those. Thank you, Christina, for getting that stuff together for us. I love to hear how well our students are doing, thanks to the teachers and the administrators and everybody who is helping get them there. Great job. So we don't really need to go over that. I think Shirley just hit that. We can go right to NEST program.
Sure.
So the NEST program is a special education program that I have advocated for. I would love to see some of the concepts brought in. I understand it's a New York City program, but I would like to see us pilot something. And I am happy to hear that we're doing more of the teach. But like I said, I heard last year we were doing it on a smaller scale at one of the schools, and I would love to hear more about that, or maybe be invited to see what's going on with it. Again, I want to see more of the NEST program. It's a very structured program, but it also has a lot of benefits for our special ed, special needs community. And I would love to see us advocate more for programs like that. I understand that it can get financially difficult when we bring in more than one program, but when we have such a large special needs, special education across district, I would love to see the equity equal at the different buildings and make sure that we bring in whatever we can to help.
It's certainly something that we can arrange in terms of a visit. The good news is, as you mentioned, that TEACH program is working directly with students with autism. And just as the NEST program sort of seems to present a specialty area in that, but there are some strategies and some approaches that maybe we will see kind of mirrored in what we're working on this year. So that's a conversation that we can certainly continue.
I would love that. Thank you.
ESY transportation.
Okay, yeah, that was me. We had received a little bit of concern about, before ESY began, that information was not posted on the portal, bus information, all of that. And I understand that it was rectified for that situation, but I would just like to advocate for this information to be posted. Well, I understand it gets sent home directly to those families. If there's a way to have it posted on the portal, the same way the school year stuff is posted, it shouldn't be any different. So that parents can, if they missed the letter, who knows what happened, they know they can log onto the portal, they can see the information teacher, bus, whatever it might be. I would like to see that on there for those families so that they don't have to worry about that. School year gets a little crazy, lots of stuff comes home, they don't have to worry about it. They can just log on, they can see that information. So if it's not there, I'd like to advocate to have that information readily available the same way it's available in September, where you have all your information there.
We can certainly take a look at that for next summer's ESY program.
Senior survey.
Well, Regents and AP scores, we went over, so thank you for that. Moving on to senior survey, I requested that parents had brought up to me, and I actually thought it was a great idea to have the seniors that are going out fill out a survey. I figure that that's the kind of way that you actually get true students' opinion, because now maybe students that fear saying something, they wouldn't have to, they're graduating. That's just an idea, but I would love to see this year it come to fruition. I do not like that we brought this up for 2 years now. On February 8th of 2022, I brought up surveys. I brought up Board of Ed goals, district core values, vision and mission statement. It's right on the paper, right? On question, you had questioned me, when did I ever bring up board goals? You can look it up. It's right on all the old. You did at one of the board meetings 2 ago. February 8th of 2022, I was asking every year. I'm glad we're finally doing it because we haven't done it in 2 years. It's about time. But again, these are things that I would like to see happen, not just we talk about them at board discussion and the can just keeps getting kicked.
Legal fees.
Legal fees. Who was that? Me?
That's you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm unaware. Is this in regards to the fees that I think people were asking about the mascot? But now we have the mascot on there too. Somebody put that mascot lawsuit.
Oh, it's possible that.
I think it's the same thing. Somebody was asking where are we at for legal fees. And when the other thing that I know I wanted to discuss too with legal fees was that people were questioning some of the legal fees I don't think they understood were covered under the insurance and completely covered. The way that like the child victims was covered completely by insurance. So taxpayer funds did not pay for that. That was all insurance took care of that.
For the settlement,
For the settlements. And the same is happening.
we incurred legal fees.
Good.
Just to clarify, with the Child Victims Act, the actual settlements were paid by the insurance company, but the legal fees were incurred by the district.
Now, what about with the lawsuits we're dealing with right now that we are in with Sokolov? Aren't those with
It
insurance?
depends, because Sokolov is representing us for the mascot.
Right. And he's also for the flag issue as well.
You're nicer.
Yes, and that's also through insurance, not through the district.
Yes, it's through nicer.
Dr. Senema, did you want to comment on the mascot or?
Yeah, I think the question that came up was how much legal fees to date. I believe it's between 14 and 15,000, and I believe the board last year gave an initial authorization of 25, and then once we got close to that threshold again, the board would have to have a conversation and discuss.
I've asked Valerie in Bob's office to notify me when it hits like 20 to 22, so that it can then be brought to the board's attention to discuss moving forward. I don't want it to get too close, so.
Thank you. Public comment? That's you too. Yep.
All right, well, that's what I'm saying, because some of these are not. So there was an issue with too much is being sent in emails, and we as a board should be having conversations in public. So that was one of the issues that I saw, instead of the comments being had in public. For instance, we're talking about goals and board goals. We're talking about core values. What are the core values of our district? Why would we have that conversation in an email? That is not an email conversation. That is a public conversation. We should have the community, a community committee that helps with those the vision of the district, the core values, the mission statement. These are things you want stakeholder input. These are not things that we want to hide behind emails, and too many board members are hiding them behind emails. I made it very clear that board goals, I will be discussing in public. Board vision, I will be discussing in public. The district, core values of the district, in public. What the district's core values, which lead to the vision of our district, which leads to our mission statement, in public. These are public conversations. I had a board member tell me that, no, we want to do these during a retreat because that's a way that you can work behind closed doors. I am not working behind closed doors. I want this done in public, and I want it done the way it's supposed to be done, giving full transparency. That's how it's supposed to be done.
So during my trainings reading, it says that most of these things are done during a retreat. Since we're not having a retreat, again, a waste of money and coming together, we are having a meeting for these. No one wanted to come up with goals, or I didn't see one person write a goal or do anything like that on an email. We are having a meeting, and I just want to be transparent and let everybody know that there's a meeting on this. And again, usually it's not done with everybody, a committee or anything. It's a retreat that the board goes to, and they do all these things during that time.
That's not true.
To say, well,
That's not true.
I guess
There's been committees.
in their training. I could say
You wanted to have it in a retreat. People do it in a retreat because during a retreat, you have somebody there who's pretty much mediating the arguing and the dysfunction. But the reality is there's no reason why we shouldn't be discussing board goals, district core values, vision and mission statement in public. There's no reason.
I'm sure that all of it will be discussed, and I'm sure Dr. Senimore will be bringing it to everybody's attention after we are done gathering our thoughts, thinking about everything. Because again, if you read or did any of the training, you'd know that this is something that the board does collectively.
April.
And then it's brought.
Individually, I know what you're supposed to do. I've been through it. You're supposed to individually make your own list of what you want to have for board goals, the vision statement, mission statement. Everybody, you bring your collective thoughts, yours. And then we all come together at a meeting, and we have that meeting where everybody then works together to try to see what can we do with your goals. You actually wrote in an email that no, we shouldn't be doing superintendent goals in public. No, we shouldn't be doing this in public.
Yes, 'cause
no,
it says to do
that's
that every
not
retreat.
true. I want to give transparency, and you do not. There is a difference.
I'll agree to
Let's-
disagree.
Okay, well, it's time to give transparency. People in our community have a right to be involved in their children's education and also in what our board goals should be, what our district core goals should be, what our vision and mission statement. I want to hear stakeholders. I want to hear what they want to hear.
Is there a reason we can't do both? That we can't get community input and also have our input and then meld those together and make our vision and goals? Is there like anything that makes it so that can't happen?
No.
A committee, having a committee is a wonderful thing. Because if you have a committee, then you can have all sorts of stakeholders be part of it. and actually make it inclusive. But the whole idea of doing things behind closed doors at a retreat, because you don't want to let the community know what your idea of what a real board goal is ridiculous.
So just so the community knows, we are having a public work session August 29th to discuss board goals, superintendent goals, mission statements.
I've only asked for it for 2 years.
UPK, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
Mrs. Poppy, I wanted to find out, as you know, I was advocating for if we were able to get any and more slots for students. If we were able to open an additional classroom, were we able to speak to scope? Is there any way? And how are they determining how many kids we get, but like the slots versus a district that's smaller than ours, maybe getting more?
So let me try to shed a little bit of light on this process. And I do have some information about what our current sort of position is relative to UPK. So Connecticut hosts 190 seats for our UPK program. We have currently 33 children who are on our wait list. We have a wait list annually. And the top 7 waitlist spots were students who were included in our lottery. So we had a March 1st deadline for submission of an application to be considered in the UPK lottery. Those spots were drawn, and really in this district, they're primarily for location, a preferred location, because we do not have UPK in every single one of our elementary buildings. Some of those families have declined spots that were offered to them, and they opted to stay on the wait list for their preferred location. So for different families, those spots mean different things. We consistently hear that transportation to and from the program are obstacles for working families because transportation is not included, and proximity of the location of a UPK slot to their home base. So we have some families who will achieve a slot in, say, Idlehour and be reside within the catchment area for Cherokee, and it's just not. It's not. They're not able to make that trip on a daily basis. So people make their personal decisions based upon their personal situations, and for that reason, we do see fluctuations in UPK wait list numbers throughout the summer and even into the beginning of the school year. And actually, we do accept students off the wait list throughout the school year. For the 23-24 school year, we ended with 4 students on the wait list. And so for us to propose to open a new section of UPK, there is an expansion grant that's available, but we would have to pay for the full amount of students to attend. So there are 18 students in a classroom. We would have to pay for all 18 of them in order to accommodate those 4 who are on the wait list. Currently, we do for 24-25, we will subsidize UPK within the general fund to the tune of, I think it's approximately $123,000. The other side of the expenditure is absorbed by our UPK grant, and that is sitting at just above $1 million, right? And so sum total, the district does pay its third-party provider scope for those seats. So essentially, our trend has been that wait list diminishes enough that it doesn't make financial sense for the district to open another section. Maybe that will change this year. So UPK has become a more popular option, I think, as families have learned about it, in that it is a 5-hour program. It is situated within the school day. Perhaps we would have more interest, and maybe this year the numbers demonstrate that we should open another section, we should make that investment, but we likely wouldn't do that without applying for that expansion grant to sort of offset some of those costs.
Are we able to do that? Like, Because that's been the situation. About 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had it where it was 155 students or 160, and we couldn't even get them.
Right.
We actually had to put out we kept putting it out to say, hey, there's 30 slots left, there's 20 slots left, there's 10 seats left. At this point, if we're seeing an uptick in our UPK, and also I think because UPK used to be an outside agency, it wasn't in our school buildings.
Yes, right.
I think that also changed the dynamics of people wanting to be involved more. Now their children could actually get a taste of their school before they start preschool, kindergarten. So their preschool is in their kindergarten school or in a school like it. You know, if you go to Cherokee and you go to Bosse, the schools look the same. So kids get a feel for what it's like. But I do think that it's a hardship for somebody who obviously lives, let's say, in Cherokee to get Idle Hour, or for somebody who lives in the Sycamore area to get Slocum, you know. So I know that we can't make it perfect for all, but it would be nice if we could put in for that expansion. I would like to see if we could try to help as many students start as young as we can. We talk about all these other Plus program and all this other stuff for starting. Preschool has become the kindergarten. Without preschool now, your kid starts out behind. So if we can help get some of these other kids in, that would be great, if possible. The other thing that it's up next, which is my other one, which is kind of the same thing.
Wait, I have a UPK question.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand this. So we're already, so we have the grant money we pay. We're paying on top of that $120,000. Correct. If we get this extended program, we're going to pay even more money because we have to pay for the 18 students. So I am not, because I'm going to, my first job is to be fiscally responsible. I am not a fan of spending hundreds more, because I assume it would be a lot more for 18 versus the 4. So I am not a fan of spending that extra funds.
So that expansion grant would be something that we would apply for. We likely wouldn't be able to implement it during this school year. It'd be something that would be planning for years forward, and we would have to see what the financial impact would be. We've been fortunate in that in the 23-24 school year, we were able to offset that cost using the COVID monies, right? But for this coming school year, because those grants are expiring, it then lands in the general fund, right, as an additional cost to the district.
That's why I would like to see if we can put in for grants, because other school districts have put in for grants, especially for preschool. There are a bunch of grants that are available. We just have to try to put in for them.
So I did explore that expansion grant for the 24-25 school year. But at the time, now it becomes a little tricky because you have to monitor your student flow, right? So we concluded 23-24 with just 4 students on that wait list. So the comment that I received back was it's not going to benefit, it's not going to present the benefit that you are seeking if you're only applying for those 4 students. Right now, we're at 33. So we'll see how that number changes over the summer. Again, people make plans, people accept spots, and then they refuse them because transportation becomes an issue, because the distance becomes an issue, et cetera. We also know that before and after care is sometimes an issue for working parents, right? We're not able to offer before and after care for our UPK program because they are taking place inside of the elementary school day, right? So it presents a conflict within the building to have those before and after care options. So that's tricky for some families to navigate as well. But we'll continue to monitor that flow of students, and we'll go ahead and see what options become available to us as a district.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
The other thing
I
was,
just have one, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you know how many we have waitlisted right now? How many students? 30, was it 33?
33. We have 190 who have accepted spots, and those 190 students are will be situated throughout the district. We run 11 sections. 10 of them are general education students, and we do run one co-taught ICT class at Bosse. So that is paired with our 4410 program.
Apologies, I must have missed that.
Nope, that's okay.
All good.
So the last thing is gonna be BOCES programs, and that was something that I had brought up to Mrs. Poppy, in regards to, we need to start looking into bringing in-house some of these, programs to give our students more of a broad opportunity to get into these programs. I know that you guys were looking into cosmetology, but I also heard that there was an uptick in the electrical BOCES, and that's also got a wait list with some of our students. And, you know, I hate to hear that we have these students that want to go into these trades and we can't get this. What are we spending sending them to BOCES? Is there a way to bring them in-house and save money? Because I look at it like, how much are we paying per student? And if you're paying per student a certain amount, would it be cheaper to bring in an electrician, electrical teacher to teach that certified course and fund the class? What works out better financially?
So I think we would have to cost that out. Our district responsibility for the number of students that we send to BOCES, and I think I spoke about this in the spring, is based upon a 3-year rolling average of enrollees, right? And at the time when I spoke about BOCES enrollment, in the spring, we were situated at just about 200 accepted applications to BOCES. And we do know that we have students who are sitting on wait lists hoping for a vacancy inside particular programs. We know that those numbers lock in October, and we'll have a real feel at that point for which are our most heavily enrolled programs. We have done a little bit of initial work into looking at which programs would be most conducive to bring into the high school. That's going to be certainly a process that involves a cost analysis and a comparison relative to what the cost is to house that program at the high school versus sending students to participate in BOCES.
Well, because BOCES also, we're funded, aren't they? Isn't it like a 60-40? The funding of the reimbursement, does it? That's what I'm saying, for the aid with BOCES. So that's why I said you really got to look at the numbers. But if it makes sense and it saves us students being able to participate, get certified, and also saves money.
So we going back to last school year, we've been having conversations about these type of vocational programs. You referenced cosmetology, it could be culinary, could be electrical. And this also ties into, long-term planning, strategic planning of the school district, fiscal planning, facilities planning. I know that's, the 5-year facilities plan is being reviewed, reviewing instructional spaces and seeing, where we want to see some investments made and look at some of the programs. We have great partnerships with BOCES, certainly not about that, but see if there's the opportunity to bring things in-house to expand offerings to our own students that are cost effective. So this ties into, as we're having these conversations as a superintendent, as a board, and eventually reaching out to our stakeholders. This is all part of that planning.
I just have one more thing to add, if we could, by the August 27th. Many community members brought up last year, and, as a community, everybody came together to try to help. The students do have to buy their tools, the kits, and those things. And we had discussed it last year about offsetting those costs for these students, because not everybody can afford what they need to get to be part of the, curriculum. So I would like to come up with an idea and what we have and what we can do to offset the costs for these tools and kits for the students before it starts. So if we could have that answer and maybe brainstorm before the August 27th
Sounds
meeting.
good.
Thank you. I have my one more.
Yep, the greenhouse farming.
Yeah, so this is just an idea I want to throw out there, and I really don't have the information in the sense of everything that can go into this, but some of the districts on our island do a garden farming program where they have a greenhouse at every school, and the students take care of these gardens, and the vegetables that they grow go to the students, just like if we had a food pantry. So the students are able to take the vegetables home. Some of the, and you know, I don't want to buy these things because obviously we don't have the money, but you know, if we get donations or grants to buy the greenhouses. And then like some of the schools have it where the 5th grade program it's like a treat. 5th graders get to learn how to farm and plant and seed and help the community. So it teaches many different things on many different levels. And it's a privilege to be able to garden and grow and help. You know, and then the middle school and the high school, maybe it could be like a club. You know, we have a lot of clubs. And
We actually have that. I know at RMS, there is in the back, they grow, I want to say like vegetables and stuff. They have a garden that they actually have kids in a club that we
Right, we
already
do have a gardening club, but they usually don't, like produce doesn't happen in large quantities enough to feed and promote these food pantries. So I just wanted it on a bigger level. But I love that RMS if they have something like this already. But, you know, again, this is an idea I'd like to throw out there, figure out what we can do, just because I think it teaches kids a lot of things. And I know farming might be a more old-fashioned type thing, but many, I mean, I grow vegetables, you know. I think it's just a great thing to teach kids that you can grow from, you know, $1 pack of seeds, you can have stuff to feed your family. So, and to help the community, it just has a lot of benefits, in my opinion, for our community. So it's something I would like to look into.
Thank you. And we have 9th grade orientation.
Today, we were contacted in regards to the 9th grade orientation that appeared on social media before it ever made its way to the parents. This kind of stuff can't continue to happen. It's a clear issue across district when we find out things on Facebook before we find them out as a community. I mean, I am a parent of a 9th grader. As crazy as this is, I saw it on social media, and after getting emails from parents, I said I had no clue. I had no clue when the kids, you know, save the date was for, and it's sad because we have 9th graders and none of us, did you know?
So actually, I have an incoming 9th grader, and I found out about it when we got the email this morning.
Okay,
And then
so-
I did scour Facebook to go find
So that's 3 of us. There's 3 of us here who have
I didn't even
9th
get an
graders.
email. I found out through the 8th grade,
It's-
the 9th grade Facebook group. That's how I knew about
It's-
the
I
orientation. I
underst-
didn't even get an email.
And I understand
So
that.
I got the email the community member sent us
Yes,
as the
and
board.
That, yes.
I
Yes,
did
got that
not-
one. Yes.
So
I
my
haven't
issue,
been on Facebook, so I hadn't seen
my
it.
issue is we've been saying for years that we want to give transparency. We want to hold people accountable. We want to do this, want to do that. I just want to see clear lines of communication. If we are putting out a save the date, it should not make its way to social media before it makes its way to a full-blown email blast to the high school parents, all 9th grade parents. All 9th grade parents today should have gotten an email, a robocall. I mean, let's be honest, in today's day, we can send out a robocall and an email blast in a matter of minutes. And you're gonna tell me that it lands on social media? And honestly, the parents have a right to be upset because I was annoyed. I was annoyed because as a board member, people must look at us and be like, hey, you have a 9th grader, you didn't know? No, I had no clue, sorry, and I really didn't. And that's sad. Like, we should know that kind of stuff in advance, not because we have 9th graders, but because the save the date's going on social media and we don't even know what's going on.
So I could appreciate that concern, and certainly I apologize. There, you know, as a district, communication is a focus. We've switched to the Parent Square communication platform that I referenced during my update. We are working with syntax on the website. There will be a transition with the website over the course from now, Ms. Poppy, correct, till next summer. And we will be emphasizing with all of our principals, not just grades 9 through 12 to high school, but all the principals, that timing of the communication and kind of that 1-2-1-2-3 punch of using, you know, what used to be School Messenger, but now will be Parent Square. You know, simultaneous with something going out on the website, with something going out on social media. That's how I try to do my communications. I try to coordinate when I'll send something out. I'll try to coordinate it with syntax so it's fairly within, an hour or two. And we're going to just make that emphasis with all of our principals and our directors. And I can certainly appreciate where everyone's coming from.
I just have one more thing.
Yep.
Sorry.
Have at it.
I just wanted an update on the grant writer. We're talking about a lot of things that we all want grants, because of course we love free money. Did we get anywhere with the grant writer, like from the school? I know that there was an update, and was it you, Christina, or Reza? Okay.
So we did reach out to some local colleges and universities. It was a suggestion that was made. And we did hear back from Adelphi, I believe it was, and I'm playing tag with the person who contacted us following our initial outreach regarding a grant writer. Interestingly enough, in the interim, we did have some interest from a retired administrator in doing this work. And so I'm going to be setting up a meeting so that Dr. C, Mr. Kohli-Hivar, and I can sit down and speak with this individual about their experience and what they would be interested in or how they would be interested in working with the district on. Yes, it's an out of district. I should clarify. Yes, it's an out of district, a Long Island retired administrator who reached out to me specifically about this type of role. So we'll provide some follow-up once we do have that meeting.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. DiLorenzo?
Yeah, I actually had two things I wanted to add. One of them I actually did say, it didn't appear on the agenda, even though I had asked to add it, but was at the last meeting, we had the presentations on the code of conduct and the district-wide safety plan, and I'd asked for it to be on the website. And it's not up there, but then I emailed about it, and it's still not there. And people only have 30 days to comment or even to view it. And while, yeah, you can hunt around, I'm on the website right now, and nobody's going to hunt around. Something, right there on the website, and I don't even know if this is possible. I'd asked an email. Also, because it's not up there, is there a way to extend it? You mentioned that we don't need to actually submit it till the end of August or something, like with a little bit more time, just to give people a little bit of time, get it up there, let them view it. I don't even know that we get much feedback, but we said we were going to make it available, and it's not there. So if I could just have an update on that.
Sure. So I have been in communications with those involved in all of this. I don't have an update right now to give you past what we've discussed. As far as the code of conduct, it will go before the board for adoption, the changes at the August 27th meeting. So again, that time frame is still there. And as far as the district-wide safety plan, I do believe it's due to the state by September 1. So I think that we could absolutely hold off on.
The next board meeting is August 27th, and so the reorg was July 2nd. I thought the district-wide plan was on there for the safety, and maybe a matter of where it's located. And I think we were trying to move it to the homepage.
I currently don't have a final updated version.
Okay. So you have the previous draft then. And then what was the code of conduct? Okay. So
What is stopping the code of conduct at the minimum from going up? Like, what is the delay?
honestly, there is nothing stopping it. So, we will contact, I'm actually going to contact Syntax tonight when the board meeting is over, and just tell them that we'll be getting them these documents tomorrow morning and be prepared to put them front and center.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate that.
And my last thing that I wanted to ask about is that we received, for open positions, E&L positions, 3 positions that are open now. And I think we had learned that they are going to be grant funded. And again, like we're seeing with COVID, it runs out. What are we going to do at that point? When that runs out, we hire people. What are our plans for that?
So, good point, great point about grants. There are different types of grants. The COVID CARES Act, ESSER type grant funding was very robust, but it did present as a funding cliff for districts all over New York State and beyond. There are other more stable type grants, and I'll pass the baton in a second to Ms. Poppy, that are federal based that are called title grants that are much more reliable in terms of sustainable funding. Normally, you don't rely upon grants to sustain programs and staffing. The federal title funds, and there are 4 or 5 categories, I think we use probably 3 or 4 of them predominantly. Those are fairly stable, and you can rely upon them for year-to-year planning and long-term fiscal staffing programmatic planning. So it's a great question. E&L, staffing, title funds. Ms. Poppy, here's the baton.
Okay, so we do annually receive allotments for titles. This district uses titles 1, 2, 3, and 4. And traditionally, we expend much of that money on staffing. In some years, there's a portion that's dedicated to supplies. The expenditures and expenditure categories have restrictions depending upon the type of title grant that we're talking about. So what we have not done, which some districts do, is we haven't relied on those monies to support staffing, as Dr. Senamore said, right? So when we're developing our budget for the next school year, we're looking at staffing against the general fund. We're not waiting for money to come through these particular grants. In fact, the application period right now is still open. I have until August 31st to submit those grants. So there's no way that it would be fiscally responsible for us to rely on this money incoming. However, we do take those monies and we assign them to a portion of staffing. And that portion of staffing is typically in the area of reading specialists at the elementary level for our Title I funding. And we're supporting portions of our literacy consultants through Titles 2 and 4 at the elementary level. That's how this district chooses to expend those monies on elementary programming. Title 3 is our E&L, and we actually have a new funding stream, which is immigrant funding, and we are allocating a portion of that funding to support staffing as well in the E&L area. So overall, that money, those monies that are coming through those different title grants are used to support staffing, but the district is not counting on it or relying upon it when we're developing our budget for the following school year. So we're able to cover some needs that we have, like Dr. Senamore mentioned, for our growing E&L population, for instance, through those funds.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to have to go back and watch and I'll write down everything you said, but thank you for that.
So annually, we do have a consultation and collaboration meeting. We're required under the Every Student Succeeds Act to participate in a conversation with all district stakeholders regarding those particular monies. There is board representation on that particular meeting, and if you'd like to join us, typically it happens in mid-May. We work with a consultant who gives an excellent overview of title spending, what the allowable expenditures are, what the different pieces to these particular funding sources involve. And you're more than welcome to participate. All of the board members can participate in that meeting because it is a required component of this particular funding source.
Thank you so much. I think that would be a great opportunity. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there like?
I just want to tell you really quick, Jack, because Jackie, I did participate this year, and I could have sworn at the end the woman did say she could send out an email, like with the presentation.
Yes.
I did go this May.
So I had a recording of that meeting, but it was in the Zoom cloud and it expires after a month. So I have the data that I need for compliance, but I don't have a recording of the meeting itself. But I can certainly take you through what I know. And then I think participating in that meeting gives a different perspective in terms of what the different components are.
You know what I also think will be helpful? The board had asked earlier for Mr. Hauser to put together like a nice little cheat sheet about the different reserve categories. I think particularly the 4 title categories that we use, something similar, I think that'd be very helpful for the board just to have.
That would be, thank you very much, Dr. Senamore. Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any discussion items? All right. Can I get a motion and a second to approve expenditures for board member to attend the NISBA Annual Convention and Expo, October 20th to 22nd, 2024? Right now, we only have Jacqueline Napolitano Forno.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
I need
Aye.
the information first. Jesse's going to give us the information.
So we do have a policy that states, I'm going to pull it up. Authorized attendees who incur expenses in carrying out their duty shall be reimbursed for their expenses. Again, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure they're, because the board allows for attendance at these conventions and conferences such, and in fact actually encourages them, I'm not sure you could require that expense to not be covered.
Just to be sure, do you know how much the rooms are? Just because the room in New York City, I assume is expensive, and that'd be 2 nights or 3 nights?
Sure, it's 2 nights and the blocks are for $379 a night.
Okay, so so for 800 there, and then 500 for the course, and then all meals and everything like that?
Yeah, I'm sure like breakfast and lunch is included in the days, and usually there are also like dinners sponsored and stuff. But there is also within that same policy, the meals are maxed at $55 a day reimbursement
So this is like $1,500 for,
easily.
yeah.
And I did look back, and we've had board members attend back 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015. So it is. There were a few years, and especially during those COVID years, where NISBA wasn't even having these in person. We haven't the board hasn't, attended these events, but for many years prior to that, they were, for what it's worth.
So did you want me to do a roll call vote or your? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will now open the floor for the first public comment portion of the agenda. The public comment portion is for consent agenda items only. An additional public comment period will be held later in the evening. Does anybody have any comments on consent agenda items only?
We forgot board committee that's on the agenda. We skipped over that.
Oh, I didn't know we had any committees yet. Did we have committees yet?
Part of our discussion items. Well, I did have a mental health meeting.
Oh,
With the Wellness Day. I don't know if you want to, you could do the.
No.
If you want to do that first.
go do the
comment.
committee report. I didn't realize we had committees already.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. Just an update for the Mental Health Advisory Council. This was more the planning committee, a smaller group of us that are planning for Community Wellness Day. So I just wanted to give the community and give the board an update on that, give everybody an update that it's planned for September 14th. That's a Saturday at the Connecticut Public Library from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. A lot of vendors, and it's really a fantastic collaboration. So I want to thank Dr. C for this collaboration, and thank you to the library for working together to put this right next door to each other. So it's perfect to be able to use the lot here, use space here, and to use the library. So it's going to be a great day. We still have more planning to do, but I just wanted to give the community that information and to give everybody up here that information on that. Thank you.
Jackie, what was it was 11 a.m. till when?
2 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and I do apologize. I didn't realize that committees had started. Does anybody else have any committee reports? So does anybody have any consent agenda items discussion? Okay. So can I call for a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 21?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a few. I don't know if anybody else does. A few questions. I don't think any numbers have changed, but the ones that I just had questions on are 9, 10, and 11. So 9 is the Global Compliance Network. If that matches up with what everybody else has, that's what I have here.
Yeah, the numbers haven't
Okay.
changed.
Okay, so number 9, my question for that one, I'm just curious about what the purpose of this company is. It looks like it's training, and some of these training courses are about cultural bias, culturally responsive discipline. So I want to make sure that, again, just quality control, oversight regarding which courses are being taken, to make sure we keep the political nature of these topics out of ConnectWatt. So if somebody just can give an update, somebody from administration.
Jackie, the Global Compliance Network, or GCN, is the training that every employee is required to do yearly. It's sexual harassment is there, the new workplace violence prevention seminar. It's a 15-minute, window that everybody has to watch. There are some other compliance issues. So again, it's really just, it has nothing to do with anything other than the required.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know,
elements.
just exactly what we do. I know there's.
They are awful, and they are state, we all have to take them.
Jackie, if you're proposing that we don't do them,
No,
I'll support you on that.
Listen,
Take some
I wish I
for
could,
it,
but I just want you all to know I get forced at work to take it, and I have my boss. that's
And I
sitting over my shoulder.
enforce the employees
Because
of the district to do
They
them
have-
as well.
There's
So
a whole DEI section, so it's a disaster.
that we don't have.
Thank you. My other question for number 10, the consultant service agreement, RCM Healthcare Services. Again, just for knowledge to know what the purpose is, because of course, they have a whole section committed to DEI, so I just want to know. I know they all have that, but I just wanted to know what they, exactly what this organization is. Yeah, the RCM, was it RCM Healthcare Services?
So I'm sorry, the RCM, the health services, that one, Ms. Pisani usually takes care of, because this has to do with the nurses. So I would have to get more information about what exactly is in there. I'm not exactly
I
sure.
was just, part of my learning also. I'm still a year, but I'm still learning.
Okay.
So I was just
Is
wondering
this-
about that, but thank you. If you could find out. And my other question, again, just if somebody can elaborate on it, number 11, the Linda Mood Bell learning process, just if you can elaborate, because it looks like when I looked at it, it's only for 2 educators, yet it's gonna cost $12,000. So maybe we just see how we paying for that. I want to know how that's working. Number 11. Linda
This
Mood
is,
Bell
yes,
learning
so
process.
Linda Mood Bell is for, is through the special education department. It is to provide a particular approach for specific students relative to their literacy skill. It's a program that we have used and implemented within the district for a number of years now. We have students with IEPs that specifically require this type of, or this approach to learning, I should say. It carries with it certainly a reputation for specific populations. And so this is a particular partnership that we have worked out in order to better service those students. It is through special education.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious about that. I think that's it. That's all I had.
Anybody else have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will now open the floor for the open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. You should have received a number card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes. For one or more topics, individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. When she gets back, she'll go.
Thanks. I love policy 2410. I never leave home without it because it empowers me and empowers community members to have a stake in policy changes. So I think what I heard today about the first reading was that right now, could change, the wording of LGBTQ privacy remains intact. Could change. I understand that it could change. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about, and it's a very complicated issue, and that's trans athletes. It's my understanding that Connecticut High School, anyway, has no trans athletes right now. But I don't know if you're aware of this. About 5 years ago, there was a transgender athlete in Ronkonkoma Middle School on the boys soccer team. The policy that was followed was New York State policy. It went as smoothly as could be for the season. So what I'm hoping is that if you're, let me rephrase that. So the policy, if that happened, that policy was followed, that in order to change that policy, you once again have to go to 2410 and have community member input into the process. Because you're not developing a new policy if the New York State policy was already enacted 4 or 5 years ago. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Number 2.
Good evening to our Superintendent, Dr. Senamore, and Board of Education members. As a homeowner and taxpayer in the Connecticut District, I am disheartened to share our substandard experience with the current Connecticut Youth Football Organization's president, Rob Lineman, and board members.
I'm just going to ask you to not name any names, please.
Sure. As a member of 5 children within our district, I'm connected to many families and have received stories of their disappointing experiences with the president. After missing registration due to a missing registration link in an email, my 9-year-old son was offered placement on an older team without his friends. I asked the president to get him onto the 9U team if at all possible, and then was told that that age bracket was maxed out already. At that point, I took what he said as truthful, and though disappointed, I explained to my son, who was eagerly looking forward to playing, that we would try again for next year or try to get him on another local team. I have since then found out that his team is not indeed maxed out according to PAL rules. After speaking out publicly, asking for local recommendations for my son to play elsewhere, multiple families came forth with their own personal dejected experiences with the president. I found out that there were multiple ages that had 2 teams available, including the age group that the president was coaching for. It has come to my knowledge through these personal experiences that not only has the president made decisions based on his personal preferences, he has afforded certain groups of families priority placement for registration with proof of a screenshot group text. In the text message, he states, if our age group hits a certain number, I will close registration of our age so we don't end up with 25 kids on one team. So who gets to decide how many kids are on a team and who gets to decide when registration closes? The president. He's responsible for an unethical registration process and placement of children. My plea with the board today is that we ensure whoever's stepping into leadership roles within our community are better vetted before being placed in these positions. What's the process for someone being voted into a position that directly impacts our children's physical, mental, and social emotional health? And if there are instances where an individual is incapable of making fair decisions in those leadership roles, who do we as the taxpayers of Connecticut go to? The town of Islip? News 12? Who's going to listen? We are in a never-ending circle where the baton keeps being passed to the next person without any action steps being taken to fix the problem. Our children are being affected by his decisions, his biased leadership decisions. I'm grateful that our Board of Education has a duty to ensure that our children are being taught the highest level of education with all the necessary tools and resources to achieve not just academic success, but good character and integrity in all aspects of their lives, which is why I'm here tonight. These morals that we work so hard to teach our children are being tainted by poor examples on the field coming from adults acting like children. This is directly affecting our children's mental and emotional health, and we need to do better for our kids and for the betterment of our community to ensure fairness across the board and instate a fair process in which the CYFO board members are voted into their positions, not just for our children, but generations of children to come. And I'll advocate for the many who don't want to speak but want to, but won't because of their fear of their children becoming a victim. We do have a petition that we have signed 100 signatures showing our community's dissatisfaction and request for change. While we do understand that the BOE does not directly oversee
I just need you to wrap
CYFO,
up.
we're asking for clarity as taxpayers, since the BOE is the one who issues the permits for CYFO to use the Connecticut facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. And while we don't oversee CYFO, our superintendent and our business official have been in touch with many of the people in charge there. Number 4.
So thank you for the answers about the mascot lawsuit. That was a very small part of a larger conversation because Half Hollow Hills East and another school recently decided to change their mascot. And Half Hollow Hills East was also Thunderbirds. So the conversation spurred from that. And the other questions within that discussion were what the outlook is for the lawsuit. Should we be talking now about what happens when we do not win the lawsuit and we do have to change our mascot? There are theoretical numbers out there about how much it would cost to change everything, what would need to change, what wouldn't need to change. Should a committee be formed now to start these conversations? Because if we are looking at this like horrific budget season and this is looming out there also, should we not be prepared for this?
Thank you. I don't have an answer to it.
Certainly, I could shed a little bit of light. We are following the guidance of legal counsel because we are in active litigation. And so right now, based on the board's guidance and the fact that we're in that litigation, we're hoping to be successful. Obviously, the board is going to monitor the progress and particularly the expense factor. And as we go into budget development time in the coming months, we're going to see where that progress is and we'll look to budget accordingly, but we'll also look to get guidance on legal counsel and where things are at. It is a considerable price, to change over a mascot, a logo, and certainly that factors into, we're not the only district that has decided to contest the state, the Board of Regents. So that all goes into the fiscal planning. With good questions, appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Number 5.
Okay, before you start my time, I just want to preface this by saying something first. Before I continue, I just want to say this, and I feel like I always have to start with this because people have a hard time with this. I very much like everybody up here. This is not personal. She knows what I'm going to say. I view this like a business meeting, and we are discussing business. So this is not a personal on anyone. So just please understand that. I definitely adore all of you. Okay, first thing I'm going to get to. We paid $10,000 for the 2020 graduation video. The videos are not archived past 2021. Why on earth do we not have the 2020 of all classes video archived of graduation? You need to go back to the company, Viper, by the way, and get those videos because the military video is no longer available. Neither is the top 25 video available. And the graduation video is on YouTube, but God knows for how long. And I did contact the district and they said nothing before 2021 is archived, which is a joke because every other district has it. How embarrassing. The other thing, with the football, you could pull the rosters. If it's not 60% of kids that are in this district, you could pull their field permits. We know that. I'd also like to know what percentage of ENL students do we have in the district? If you get a chance, Ms. Poppy, if you could just send it, I'm just curious. The other thing, graduation, you had a discussion about it. The feedback on graduation and the setup this year is that the parents weren't really thrilled about it. I get you trying something new, but when you have an event, you have to take into account the guests that are there. The guests were not happy. Parents, grandparents, little kids don't want to climb bleachers. We also can't see the kids when we're up there. We want to see the kids. That's the point of graduation. You have a party, you have an event, you take your guests into consideration. A lot of people accidentally gave feedback back on something I asked. And quite honestly, they preferred it the other way, where the kids were up there. We're there to see the kids. It's nice. You got your big bleachers. That's great. We don't care about dead space on the side. The other thing, let's see. In the past years, been coming to these meetings about 15, 16 years, principals used to come in all the time and give their future plans for their building. They would discuss what was going on in their building, things that were 1, 3, 5-year plans. I haven't seen a principal come here discuss anything exciting, and I don't even know how long. They should be telling us the trajectory of what they envisioned for their buildings. I love that Ms. Poppy gave us an overview of all the great curriculum stuff that's going on. That's awesome. But I haven't seen any principal come in here with any exciting programming. That should be happening. They should be inspiring, encouraging leaders. They should have staff that's so excited about the things that they're doing. We do have amazing staff members that are doing some great things. It's typically a lot of the same ones. And I love that. I love that for them. But those staff members should feel excited. They should want to come in and do great things. But you need to have a leader that does that. Otherwise, we're just boats just drifting around in the ocean. We don't have any goal. I don't even understand why we're not doing any of that. I love the idea of growing the garden. April, we've asked for that for over 10 years. Nothing's really happened with that. Hopefully it does now. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, look, you guys had a vote before about something, and this is just something. You had the opportunity to discuss something publicly. Some yous wanted to, some yous didn't. You disagreed on some verbiage on something and whatever. That's going to happen. It very much felt like it was a spite vote, and maybe it was and maybe it wasn't. I'm not accusing anybody. But what I'm saying is that sometimes, even when you feel a certain way, the best thing to do is probably go back and collaborate. People at the top collaborate, people at the bottom compete. We have to learn to collaborate, put our personal feelings aside, whether you like each other or not. Publicly, it would have been very nice to see, because it did come across like it was a spite vote, even though I'm not saying that you guys are being spiteful, and this goes for all the time, not just tonight. It would have been nice to see you guys go back, discuss it, whatever, fight behind closed doors, whatever you have to do, because that does happen. Just so as a community, we feel like you guys are working together. Even maybe you're not in the back. I don't know. But I'm realistic. But it didn't feel nice. And you know, we're a community. We're supposed to feel nice. It's the little things. If I walk through a door and I hold the door open for the person behind me, they're going to say thank you. They're not going to think much about it for the rest of the day, right? It's a normal thing.
I'm just going to need you to wrap up.
I will.
Sorry.
I promise. But if you're coming behind me and I slam that door closed, right? You're going to think about that and you're going to be very mad. And you're going to tell people how annoyed you are about it. It's not a big thing in the scheme of your life. It is not a big thing in the scheme of your day. But it's those little things that make a difference. So do those little things. Just think about that. That's just something.
Thank you. And yes.
So I just want to follow up, appreciate all of your input as always. In terms of the principals, last year, the principals, the directors, spent a lot of time working with Ms. Poppy. We had 2 presentations one at the elementary level, one at the secondary level, in terms of the principals and speaking at a board meeting. They do have annual goal-setting meetings that Ms. Poppy, sits with them, and we're talking as a board and as a superintendent and a cabinet about revisiting the mission statement, looking at goals for the district, and then aligning our goals to them, looking at to your point and the points that have been raised by various board members about multi-year planning, strategic planning, and then aligning there. So that is a focus. I've been charged with that, and I embrace it. That ties into the bread and butter. That's exciting. Talk about excitement. That's exciting work, and we're looking forward to engage that. That'll be part of that workshop that we'll be having together at the end of August.
Yeah, I got a question. So I did ask, I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before that, for 5-year plans for all of our, was it last one or the one before? It had to be a meeting or 2 ago. I was very adamant about wanting it from all of our district leaders in showing us what it was last meeting, right? So why hasn't it hasn't been discussed? I don't understand most districts, the building leads already have that. It's already in place. So do we have that? Do any of them have that? Can we find out? Can we have it
So,
done?
the principals work under my direction, and of course, Ms. Poppy and the rest of the cabinet. As I said, there is annual goal setting. In terms of this multi-year planning, as a district, we're now engaging in that process with me as superintendent, with our current board, this multi-year strategic planning, 5 years and beyond, because obviously, our students are with us for 12, 13, 14 years. Our staff are with us 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So as a district, myself, I need to bring forth, which I'm working on, this vision, this draft. As a board working with me, we bring that, we further kind of craft it, and then we got to get that stakeholder input. And now once we have, as a district, and this doesn't happen in 1 or 2 meetings, this is going to take much of the year to do this the right way, which I know is what all of us want to do, and then be able to put forth and say, this is our strategic plan. This is what we're looking at from now to 2030 and beyond. And then for the subsequent leadership of the district to be able to align it accordingly.
Thank you. Does anybody else in the public wish to speak? Can I call for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.